how to breathe before you learn anything else. Because the only thing that's with you through your entire life is your breath. It's the only thing that's unchanging. Your body changes, your relationships change, your job changes, your family changes. Everything about your life changes. The only thing that remains consistent with you is your breathing. So the first thing we need to learn to control is how we breathe and how we show up, because that's what makes all the difference. So hopefully just that little minute or two can bring us a little centered. I just want to give a little update. Well, not an update, but if we have any newcomers, just a course description, I guess. So today is about the leadership of Martin Luther King, right? How he set that standard, how he set that example for us, and what things can we pull away from him that we can start applying in our own lives. Maybe he had certain perspectives. Maybe there were certain ways that he did things. Maybe certain ways he communicated things that we can now take for us and we can apply and start making some waves and some impacts. Or if not making bigger, because I'm sure everyone here is already doing something amazing in their community. So it's not a history lesson into Martin Luther King. It's not a history lesson into civil unrest. But we will talk about those things, obviously, because that's Martin's story. But it is about his leadership qualities. So to get us kicked off, I want to invite Shaniqua to check us in from last week, and then we'll get a chance to have a little discussion.
Awesome. So last week we had the great opportunity of talking about our vision, our mission, and our purpose statement. And so we're going to jump right into that component. There's something in my glasses. Right into that component where we talk about how we actually did that. We are huge on accountability. And when we leave with a challenge or a charge, we want to be able to discuss how did we actually implement that throughout the week. And so prior to going into your breakout rooms, I want you to think about this. How did you lead the charge over last week? Implement your takeaway. So we left with discussing your purpose statement. And so what is your purpose, your why? And then from there, we asked that you implemented it in whatever sector or whatever sphere of influence that you had throughout the week. So we're going to talk about that in breakout rooms. Hopefully you have a notepad, you have something where you can take notes because note takers are history makers. And this is going to be a session where we are going to be just discussing a lot of different information. And it's going to require some impartation and participation from you as well. And so you're going to be discussing your purpose statement and how did you implement that last week.
And quick thing, if I can add,
Sure.
If we have any new folks here who maybe missed last week, that's okay. Don't feel overwhelmed. You can still join in that breakout room conversation. So what we broke it down into three things was vision, purpose, and mission. Your vision is your what. What are you trying to accomplish? Your purpose is your why. Why is that something that stands out to you? What is it about your story specifically that makes this important? And then your mission was the how. How are you getting this done? So we're going to go into these breakout rooms. And if you weren't there last week and went through the process with us, it's okay. You can still talk about your purpose, still talk about your story and the things that matter most to you.
Yep.
Are we ready for breakout rooms?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I will send you off now, and I'll send you a 5-minute reminder for the 10-minute total time that you will be together.
I'm just curious where you guys at. What state?
So I'm in Virginia. Shaniqua was in New York.
Oh, New York. For some reason, I thought Shaniqua was in Florida.
I'm. You know what? You feel the Florida heat. That's where I'm from.
Oh, you're from Florida, really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that something?
Right. And you were spot on. How did you know?
I don't know. It's just something about you. I thought you're from Florida. Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm from California right here.
Hey, Palmer. So it was Max Dupree and the book was called Leadership is in Art. And so welcome back, everyone. I'm sure you guys had some very interesting conversations in your breakout rooms. And, you know, we covered a lot. We got to talk about Martin. We got to talk about these marches over the bridge. We talked about why he set the example for leading from the middle and what that looked like, literally and metaphorically, not only leading from the middle of his people, but leading from the middle of their vision, right? And giving them that vision to actually look forward to, right? So Martin became the mortar. And that was really, really interesting because we talked about with the photographers, how there was multiple perspectives. And Shaniqua actually brought this up that during our breakout room, how our perspectives can make such a huge difference on what becomes reality, right? Imagine that this picture was never taken. Imagine all you ever saw were hoses and dogs. How would that have changed the movement based on one perspective? And if we're open to changing and growing and learning new perspectives, we can get closer and closer to truth. And that was Martin's ultimate goal, right? We talked about that. It wasn't just about the United States. It wasn't just about Black people. It wasn't just about the country or himself. It was about finding the truth of what was right. So we would love for some people to share. You can drop into the chat. What did you come up with during your conversation? What stood out? Any notable points or just interesting things? I see Jen typing away. I'm excited.
Can I share? This is good.
Yeah, go Lotus, go. We were waiting for you because you always come with some diamond point. So I was like, we're getting close to the end of the time.
Thank you for your enthusiasm and support. Yes, what came to me in our triad, and I guess it comes also from my Oriental reference, cultural reference, is the yin and the yang. And then I'm glad also with the feedback of my two mates. What came, the conclusion for me is that to have a good balance between the yin and the yang. So it means, yeah, sometimes yang is more embodied by male gender. So it means more that frontal approach and whole front seat. But sometimes it's also good to have that more the yin and female, energy and approach. So it means to take more the middle or the collaborative or the back stage, and then to work more and in the non-visible way, and sometimes can be more effective too. So depending on the situation, depending on the people, on the audience. So to have that balance of the yin and the yang, and to know when to use the yin, when to use the yang approach, frontal or sideline. So this is my sharing.
That is great. That is so amazing. And you know, one of the things I was going to talk about, but we just don't have time for it, was the different levels of leadership, right? And there's 5 levels, and you know, level 5 leaders embody and are able to create greatness because they represent a paradox of things. They represent both personal humility and strong professional will, right? A yin and a yang. They have the rigidity around their purpose, but also the fragility to deal with the people. And Martin it was a perfect example of that. So that was a great share, Lotus. Thank you for bringing that point up. So Jen called out Colette. So are either of you open to sharing?
I'd actually like to nominate our note taker, Miss Patricia. I think she did a beautiful job. I don't know, Jen, what are your thoughts?
I love that.
Jen picked Colette. Colette nominated Patricia. Very nice.
Well, we had a good round, so thank you. And I was the note taker, so this is what I took down. Jen actually works with advanced students, and they all want to be leaders. She actually acts as someone who bridges the gap, and she allows her students to actually decide what they want to do and how they will do it, and giving that middle go-between between the administration and the students. But anyway, she's excited about the students wanting to be leaders and is bringing these pointers that she's taking from this class back to her students. Colette shared that about leading from the middle, that Martin Luther King, he was on the front line with people who believed him. And what he spoke was, I am here with you. But what they spoke back to him was, I believe you and I follow you. And she also made a point of saying that there must be relatability in the message. So Marcel said, asking these people for huge commitments, it had to come from the middle. It couldn't be a top down, because Martin Luther King was asking them for nonviolence, no violence, even when needing to defend themselves, to respond with no violence. So, and then I shared about the fact that I have a support team now, and that's made all the difference in the world. And that picture that you showed of Martin Luther King, where they're arm in arm walking together, I feel that now with our group of 8 in our support team, that we're leading this purpose, this mission and vision together out into the world. That's it.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Patricia, for one, taking such copious notes, but then 2, being able to synthesize them in a way that actually segues us into this next component of understanding how specifically Martin Luther King was a leader. But before we even go into that, and you can continue to keep writing in the chat what you discussed in your group, because we'll be able to share those things out shortly. But in understanding what it means to be a leader, you also have to understand what it means to be a follower. And so leading from the middle starts with you, not as the leader, but both the leader and follower, working alongside other leaders and followers. And that means that when you are leading from the middle, you are leading by example. And that's one of my mantras, Ductos Exemples. It's to lead by example. And when you're doing those things, these are the questions that you ask. Do you want to see others aiming at their potential? Then you aim your own work at both your potential and their potential. And so again, relating to Martin Luther King in that pivotal position of being the intercessor, the person in the middle that sees not only your potential, but their potential as well. Do you want to see others prioritizing the organization's impact in the community? Then you prioritize that in your own work. Do you wish your organization's leaders would spend more time talking about the community and less honestly about the tangible things that are associated with it, such as like money or income? Then show what that looks like with your own work. Leading from the middle is leading by example. Model the behaviors you want to see in others. And then from there, as Matt stated earlier, be an invitation to what is possible by walking that talk. That is truly what it means to lead from the middle and lead by example. Because leading from the middle means everyone is both a leader and a follower. It's not just top down, it's understanding that you encompass both roles, and often at the same time. Much of a group's power is to create change, and it lies in knowing and trusting each other, right? That is key. It's pivotal. It can't just be where you only trust in yourself. You have to trust in the people around you. And that's what Martin Luther King did so effortlessly. When you lead from the middle, you value this experience and you combine the higher and the lower perspectives. Again, here's that word, within your organization to make informed operational decisions aligned with the strategy that usually comes from the visionary. One of the challenges and opportunities of being in the middle, though, is also that you, and I wouldn't even say it's a challenge, it's something that you embody, is that you can translate the strategies and objectives of those above to those around and below you at the same time. You can communicate on the ground insights to those also at the top. No one says it's easy to be in the middle, but it can certainly be very important and rewarding. I love the fact that thinking about Martin, he was the king, literally, with the common touch. He was not afraid of being a leader, but also being one that was that immersed in his community. And so, 4 things that I pulled out specifically about his life and how he led as a leader. 1, he empowered the powerless. So, outstanding leaders don't take on the world all by themselves. They make movements, they build movements, and they do that together collectively. They find the opportunity. Second thing is they find the opportunity in every situation. And I've heard over the course of 3 weeks that there are so many of you that are doing that. You're finding an opportunity in every situation to uplift, to encourage, and to empower those in your communities and around you. The third thing, and I think that's what's being exemplified today, is that we enlist the best allies. Find people that are connected to you that can understand your mission and your vision. And Martin Luther King did that so well. It wasn't just about people that looked like him. It was about people that embodied and understood the mission and had no problem with embracing their fears, their own anxieties, but moving forward and forging to build movements collectively and together. And then the 4th thing, which is my favorite, it's they pursue the impossible. So often we are told that we can't do this and you don't have the resource to do this or that. But when you lead from the middle, you see the power in community. You see the power in the collective, and therefore you eradicate what's impossible and you move towards creating, yes, opportunities where you see impossible as I'm possible. Thank you, Matt. That word serves as your affirming action or phrase to be able to move into exactly what it is that you need to do when it comes to leading from the middle. So the 4 things: empower the powerless. You find the opportunity in every situation. You enlist the best allies and you pursue the impossible. I want you to take like 60 seconds to just breathe that in and think about ways of how you are actually doing that. How are you enlisting these 4 principles that I lifted from Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy and life? How are you actually embodying those when it comes to the work that you're doing on an everyday basis? 60 seconds to think about it, and then we'll move on to our next point.
Can you put those in the chat for us, Shaniqua?
Sure can.
Possible. I got you, Donna. Don't worry. So we're not going to spend too much time here because we're going to actually take a few minutes to journal. So you're going to continue doing what you're doing. And we're going to actually put a little 5-minute timer on it. And, you know, during the last breakout room, we got a chance to talk about, so for those who don't know, some of my background is I work at NASA as well as a facilitator. And the United States had a rover land on Mars yesterday. Some of you guys may have seen. And yeah, that's exciting because it's a lot of work. And we were talking about how that was a great example, simultaneously, like Martin and the bridge and the mountaintop speech and everything that he represented with this movement, of the difference between sight and insight, being able to see what is not yet there. Right. And we talked about the Mars rover and how there was so much stuff that went into it, from the parachutes to the heat shield to the trajectories to the communication to, and I've worked on spaceflight stuff before, and there's so much. You have to bake out every single wire. You have to bake it for a certain amount of time, like you would a cake or something, because you want all the oxygen to come out of it. You have to bake every little pin and every little thing, and then you put it all together, and then you have to do the whole thing in a vacuum, and then to make sure it can work in space. And then from there you do, and there's just so much that goes into it. And that is the difference between sight and insight. Seeing what's immediately in front of you versus knowing what can become. Right? And that's what Martin exemplified, is knowing what could become. Right? I've been to the mountaintop. I've seen where we can go. So just for a few minutes, we want to take some time to keep journaling about what Shaniqua just talked about, these 4 attributes of an amazing leader. And how does that show up for you specifically? Who in your life needs you the most? What cause is calling on you? There is something unique to you and your story. Some things unique. There's no one on this screen or in this world who has your perspective, who's lived what you've lived, who've known who you've known. You are so special. Who needs you to show up as the leader you actually are? We're going to take a few minutes and go through that. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's a cause of something you've experienced, and now you can have a different perspective to help others. Maybe it's people at your workplace, and you are in charge of really making a difference there. Who needs you? Maybe it's you who needs you to show up. Who needs you the most? Just to take a few minutes and journal here. And if anyone would like to share, you're welcome to. If you want to make this a special, sacred thing for you, that's also okay, that you can reflect on yourself. I think that's a great question, Robert. In the chat, he talked about, how do you think MLK would describe the mountaintop? And for those of you who were here last week, maybe you remember how we started off the conversation. And we did a visualization of, tasting lemon juice. And most of the people here, if not everyone, by the end of the visualization, which was, a minute or two, their mouth was salivating in the back. And, it's starting to water a bit. Because when you can describe something like walking into your kitchen, rolling a lemon under your palm, smelling it, smelling that sweet citrus burst of the skin and the zest, and maybe cutting it in half and squeezing a few drops into the back of your mouth and tasting that lemon, it becomes real in your body. It becomes real to you. You can see it even though you're not holding it. Or maybe you just like limes better, but you can still taste it either way. And that That is what describing your vision should be like. It needs to be compelling. It needs to have a taste to it. It needs to have a feel. You need to be so clear on your vision that people can put themselves in it. I think, I read a while back that one of the greatest feats for a human is to use language and symbols to communicate one idea from one person's brain to another. Because that's all we're using, right? Words and letters and alphabets, language and symbols. And if I can communicate from my idea, this clearly conceived thought and vision of what the mountaintop looks like, and I can implant that into your mind, well, if you can see something that's reality, you can see yourself in it. Because that's just how we tend to show up as humans, right? I couldn't see myself doing that. Oh, I can see myself there. If you cannot fully communicate your vision, people will not be able to see themselves as a part of it. And that is what separates leaders from managers.
Drops mic. Thank you, Matt. We should be wrapping up our reflections. I'm just still soaking in these moments because there's so much information that we can take into our daily lives, our workplace, our spheres of influence that ultimately make us better leaders. And even me facilitating this, I've been able to get some really amazing things out of the conversation. And it's just been really, really, really insightful, Matt. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to lead us into our challenge. And so we had the opportunity to reflect and think about where we are and where do we lead, and write about like who do we need to show up for. And these are thoughts that I want you to keep in your mind, especially when thinking about this. This is the challenge that you're going to go into next week with. What are some ways that I can become more involved or integrated in my cause? I'm actually going to put the question in the chat for you to have, because this is what I want you to vacillate on throughout the week and use to be able to build out your actions when it comes to the work that we're doing here collectively together. So what are some ways? I'm trying to copy and paste. My computer is being wonky. Okay, here we are. What are some ways that I can become more involved and integrated in my cause? That is your challenge for the week. I want you to chew on and think through in preparation for our conversation, our last conversation as a collective, as a community. And I'm excited to see how you're building and really molding and cultivating this idea of leadership, but specifically, what does it mean to lead from the middle?
Perfect. I want to just take 1 second and say we have a Martin in the room. This is the first time I'm seeing Martin and during this course. And I just want to give him a shout out because his name is Martin. That's exciting for me. No, but I love that charge and that cause, Shanika. That's perfect. How do you get to the top of the stairs? One step at a time. And it's important that we do this work today. Give yourself 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and answer that question. But every single day, be intentional about winning the day. One step at a time is how we get to the top. So how are you going to do something every day this week that draws you closer to the middle, right? Maybe it's the middle of your family. Maybe it's the middle of your cause. Maybe it's the middle of your friend group, whatever the case is for you. How can you show up a little more actively and make a difference? Maybe you send a text message once a day to someone you haven't chatted with. Maybe, you give someone an elbow bump. I don't know if we can do hugs where you guys are at, but you can Give someone an elbow bump every day. I don't know. What's something you can do? Small thing, once a day, that can really make a difference for someone else. Just think about that. So Shaniqua, Susan, do you guys have anything else before we go off and change the world for this week?
I just wanted for us to take some time to share one takeaway that you have from today's discussion. One takeaway from today's discussion in the chat.
Character dares. I love that idea. That's a word, intentionality. So important. Servant leadership. Yep. What cause is calling you? I love that. Sight versus insight. Being purpose driven, or maybe even purpose pulled. Enlist the best allies. These are amazing. These are so amazing. Okay, so for everyone that's here, we're gonna do one last thing. I want you to take your hand in front of you like this. Yeah, come on, Linda. I see you. And you're gonna put it straight up above your head. And you're just gonna pat it like this. And give yourself a pat on the back for showing up today. You guys are amazing.
Wow, Matt, thank you. Thank you for that very explicit way to pat ourselves on the back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us again this third week on a Sparkle Saturday. It is our desire that you felt the love in the room, the love for all the things, but the love for leadership and what does it mean to lead from the middle. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, the Charter for Compassion, for allowing us this platform to be able to share and to impart into you. And we look forward to seeing your beautiful faces
next week.
If you can come off mute and say bye. Bye.
Later.
Bye, y'all. Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you
you
for
so
being
much.
here.
Thank you so much.
Lots of love. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. We see you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Oh, no worries, Ms. Kim. We're gonna have the recording available for you so that you have an opportunity to see it.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was wonderful.
Thanks again. Can't believe how quickly the time goes.
I know.
Yeah,
Bye.
so, yeah.
See you,
Thank you
Matthew.
all
Thank
for
you.
being here.
See you, Sarah. See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good week.
Bye.